Island One Company looks forward to seeing you at Matt's in March.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Mark Redding.
There are new developments in the ongoing saga that is beneficial ownership information. Reporting requirements may go back into effect, but with possible changes. Tyson Fisher of Landline Magazine drops by with the latest. There's been a freight boom at the southern border in recent months and years, led by a spike in computer-related freight coming from Mexico. Jose Guerrero of Uber Freight helps us make sense of what's fueling the boom. Truckers have a liking for shiny things, especially those that involve chrome. But that raises a question. Where are the best places to put some chrome on your truck? We'll find out from Brian Martin of the Chrome Shop Mafia. And finally, which do you prefer? The old-fashioned manual transmission or the newfangled automated manual transmission? Why do some carriers favor automatic, and why do old-timers mostly favor manual? Marty Ellis has a few thoughts. I'll talk with the man who drives the spirit of the American trucker. And now, here's Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Mark. You won't believe it, but we've got yet another update on the saga that is beneficial ownership information reporting. All signs point to that requirement going back into effect at some point in the near future. Here to help us make sense of all the latest is Tyson Fisher. Tyson's been all over the story, covering it for Landline Magazine. Tyson, how we doing?
I'm good.
There's hesitancy there because you've been following the story,
Yes.
and it has literally been a ping-ponging of is it in effect, is it not in effect? Just to be clear, as we speak right now, this requirement, this beneficial ownership information requirement, is not in effect.
That is correct.
As we talk right now. However, it appears that we may be heading this way, and that is because we've got new developments from the federal government, from the court system. Walk us through what we know now.
Yeah, so the last time we spoke, the Supreme Court had struck down an injunction that that made BOI voluntary only, but we also mentioned that it did not touch a second injunction. Well, the federal government under the Trump administration now has stepped in. They're taking over these lawsuits, and they have decided to go ahead and continue to stay the course, and they are asking the federal courts in the second injunction to lift that injunction, to lift it. So basically what the federal court or what the federal government is asking the federal court is to revive beneficial ownership information reporting while we appeal this case. So, basically what happened is the Trump administration is just carrying the torch handed to them by the Biden administration when it comes to the Corporate Transparency Act and beneficial ownership information reporting. So, if the court grants the federal government, their motion, then beneficial ownership information reporting will be required. Per the court documents that the federal government filed, from the day that the injunction gets lifted, companies will have 30 days to file. That's going to be the deadline, 30 days from the day the injunction is lifted. Now, we don't have a ruling on that yet, but if that happens, you're going to have 30 days to file that report.
And all indications are because of the players involved here in the federal government and the courts here, essentially the federal government asking the court to lift this injunction. It seems like we're heading that way.
With the Supreme Court precedent, too. Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, it seems like we're heading that way. So that's kind of what we know, although we don't know the full story. Another wrinkle to this, if only to add to the confusion here, is that there is something mentioned here that's new. Low-risk entities may get relief from this reporting requirement. We don't necessarily know what that means.
Yes. So in its motion to lift that injunction, the federal government said, so again, we mentioned that 30-day deadline. Within that 30 days, the federal government is going to look into providing some relief for low-risk entities. And that's it. That's all it really says. It doesn't say what that relief would look like. It doesn't even define who would be considered to be a low-risk entity. They're going to flesh out those details within that 30-day transition between the injunction being lifted and the deadline. So again, we have to be on standby for that because there's a good chance that, well, maybe your particular company will have a further extent. Again, we don't know what that means. So I don't want to add any more confusion by speculating here. But we do know that the federal government is looking to modifying the Corporate Transparency Act to provide some, again, relief to certain small businesses.
Can we talk a bit about how surprising this new development is a little bit? Because we had kind of expected the Trump administration to wipe away most of the stuff the Biden administration did. We thought maybe that this would be part of it, but they essentially here are asking for the injunction to be lifted, for this requirement to go back in place. And to add to the confusion here, we've got Congress looking at this issue too, and Republicans in both chambers of Congress have asked either to repeal this requirement or delay it, both scenarios there. So we've got kind of conflicting things going on here.
Yeah, it threw me for a loop for sure. And so, what the Trump administration has been doing since January 20th is that they've been looking at all the various lawsuits challenging various Biden-era rules and regulations. And they're going in and they're asking the courts just to pause this while we figure out what we're going to do with that. So I figured, well, BOI reporting and Corporate Transparency Act, surely it's going to be the same thing, but it's not. They're just, as I mentioned earlier, they're just, they're continuing the case as if it were the Biden administration doing it. So there seems to be, some agreement within the federal government in between both administrations that maybe this Corporate Transparency Act is a thing. I don't know what to make of that, but it didn't make sense to me. But then again, nothing about these two federal court cases have been making any sense since December 3rd. But yeah, you mentioned legislation. So while these court cases are adding a bunch of confusion, there is two pieces of legislation that could provide some certainty for small businesses. One of them is the Repealing Big Brother Overreach Act. And what that would do is completely repeal the Corporate Transparency Act and end BOI reporting for good. Never had to speak of this again. The only problem with that is it's a partisan effort. It is got a lot of support, but Republicans only. Meanwhile, there is a second bill called the Protect Small Business from Excessive Paperwork Act. And what that would do is it would delay BOI reporting deadline to January 1st of 2026. So no matter what happens in the courtrooms, you will not have to file a report till at the earliest January 1st of next year. That's got bipartisan support. And if I had to speculate, has a better chance of making it to the finish line as opposed to that repeal. But again, who knows?
Who knows? Yeah, for sure. Well, it feels like whatever we expect is going to happen, the opposite will happen, and then we'll be confused even more. Then who knows what's going to happen?
But I was going to say, the takeaway here is this. Right now, you do not have to file, but just be on standby for any day now to file within 30 days. Those are the two key takeaways from this conversation.
And this is, again, for most companies with 20 or fewer employees would be required to submit this information. That would include, in most cases, owner-operators out there. Not a difficult requirement to meet necessarily, relatively simple to file online at fincen.gov/BOI. But again, if you haven't done this, if you haven't gone through the process yet, you might want to start thinking about it, because if and when it does go into effect, that timeline will be pretty short. Never a dull moment. We appreciate it, Tyson.
No problem.
In other news, make sure to double-check your routes this weekend. Winter storms are having a major impact on states in the Northeast, and several states have commercial vehicle restrictions in place on multiple interstates. New Jersey is one of those states. Pennsylvania is another. So stay safe out there and use our road conditions resource on our website for up-to-the-minute updates. Just go to our website, landline.media, hover above the Resources tab at the top of the page, and tap on Road Conditions for Truckers. That's Landline Now News for today. Mark, back to you.
Thanks, Scott. Next, we'll discuss the spike in computer-related freight from Mexico with Jose Guerrero of Uber Freight, and I'll discuss some of the best places on your truck to put some chrome with Brian Martin of the Chrome Shop Mafia. We'll be back in just a moment with more of the program. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Capital Reman, the leader in remanufactured diesel engines and components, has partnered with OOIDA to offer exclusive member benefits. Visit capitalreman.com today to support America's transportation industry and take advantage of your benefits.
Running on ultra-low sulfur diesel? Stay protected this winter with Howe's Diesel Treat and Diesel Lifeline. Steer clear of gel and ice with North America's #1 trusted brand. Find Howe's products nationwide at select retailers, auto parts stores, truck stops, and on Amazon.com.
It's tested and proven. Burn 2.1% less fuel when you balance all wheel ends with Centromatic. Call 800-523-8473 to get the OOIDA discount.
Landline Now, welcome back. If you've been following the recent trends in cross-border freight, you've probably noticed a pattern developing with regard to freight coming into the U.S. from Mexico. It has been booming in recent months and years. To find out what's driving that growth and a little talk about the looming tariff threats, we are joined by Jose Guerrero of Uber Freight. Jose is the Director of U.S. Customs Operations. Jose, thanks for joining us.
Sure.
And I absolutely want to dive into all this tariff talk because it seems like that's all anybody's talking about right now. But let's start with the freight boom at the southern border. We've been watching it here develop and continue really for several months now. Just curious what you're seeing out there at the southern border, the sustained growth in freight coming up from Mexico. Does it surprise you at all, the staying power of what you're seeing there?
No, actually, it doesn't surprise me, the growth that we've had this year. I mean, we've been seeing the growth over since 2022. COVID jump-started the whole uptick in volumes here. But 2022 and 2023, I mean, the volume that grew between those 2 years is like almost 5%, right? So in our experience, what we're seeing today is the continued growth, right? So this past year, just to give you an example, we've been seeing 18,500 shipments daily just through one port of Laredo, which is right now the largest inland port in the country. So I think we've even surpassed Long Beach, for that matter, in terms of entered volume and entered value and stuff like that. So right now we're averaging about 18,500 daily shipments, or about almost 5 million trucks per year. And a lot of it has to do with, there's a lot of been talking about nearshoring and so on and so forth, and we're seeing that, right? So a lot of manufacturing has gone into Mexico, which allows us to be able to participate, in this growth, right? So the whole southern border has just been a boom, specifically here in Laredo. So yeah, it's been consistent over the last 3-4 years now, and right now we continue to see that boom. There's no From speaking with our customers, we don't see that there's a dip with all these things that are happening, that political happenings, and so, but we still see that trend right now.
Yeah, and I guess that was one of my questions too. Was really, we've seen, as you point out, over the past few years now, it's really got some staying power, right? Sometimes
Correct.
you see these bumps, they last for a few months and then they kind of wane and kind of go away or level off at least. With this one, it seems like I don't want to say this is the new norm necessarily, but is this sustainable? Do you expect to see this trend continue? And if so, why?
Yeah, so I think we do foresee that it's sustainable. I think one of the things that the CBP is actually, Customs and Border Protection, is doing is to facilitate trade. Really, I think that's really been the driver of the growth as well. The CBP has become more of a customer service friendly type of environment. Yeah, security is top notch because that's the number one priority, along with revenue protection and so on and so forth, right? But I think what's happening now, and from what we've seen and talked to my customs contacts, is that they're facilitating trade. Why? What are they doing? By facilitating trade, meaning that they're programs like CTPAT, Customs Trade Against Partnership, against Terrorism, sorry. They're actually facilitating, making dedicated lanes for that. So they're going from 4 to 7. And these are all dedicated lanes for exporters, importers, and border carriers to take advantage of. So along with those changes, or actually updates or upgrades that you want to call them, Customs is allowing to facilitate trade. So trade moves much more fluid, right? So they also have programs like UCP, Unified Customs Processing, where we have Mexican customs officials and U.S. customs officials in the same booth processing export out of Mexico and imports into the U.S. So that's facilitating trade. So a lot of the trade that we're seeing because of the boom, but also I think that the trade and our government, in this case, Customs and Border Protection, is helping to facilitate that trade. And this is this is actually good for us because this is something that we want secure supply chains, right? We want to have customers that have that security in mind, right? We work with our customers and they ask us a lot of questions and things like that, and we try to help them out as much as we can. But this is why I think the sustainability is there in terms of the facilitation of trade.
You mentioned kind of briefly there that this is a good environment. I think you used the word good. And I think that's safe to say that we're seeing with all this activity, a lot of people benefit from it. On the Mexico side of things, you also mentioned manufacturing. Is that really kind of the driving force of this? What exactly is going on in Mexico that has led to the boom there that has, in turn led to the good conditions or a good environment for both sides?
Correct. I think, in speaking with our customers, a lot of this information is just talking to our customers, right? But I think one of the things that they've all come to tell me, and from what I gather, it's just technology and the manufacturing quality has improved in Mexico. That is getting up there. We're able to compete with other countries that typically manufacture, but Mexico has become a top tier manufacturing country in which we see that the quality of the products that are coming up, the goods that are being produced, things of that nature is starting to help. So I think one of those things based on our customer conversations is that they're why source from somewhere else when you can get the same or better, closer to the U.S., right? And that's kind of been what we've been hearing from our customers.
Yeah, and that also speaks to the type of freight I think that's coming across, sort of the increase in freight too, right? Because computer-related freight really has been booming in recent months, and that kind of speaks to what you're talking about there. It sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you see that. I mean, there's like almost like a little mini Silicon Valley in Mexico where, things are happening as well. So, it's just the whole level of manufacturing has really gotten better. I mean, for lack of better words, but it's just, it's up to really good standards now, not that it ever wasn't, but it's just, it took it to another level.
Yeah, for sure. How exactly is Uber Freight kind of taking advantage of the situation or adjusting, I guess maybe is a better way to put it, to what's happening out there to make sure that you're making the most of the opportunity there?
Yeah, so we as an Uber Freight, we position ourselves as a cross-border logistics service provider here on board. We're not necessarily just cross-border logistics, but that's one of our core services that we currently offer today. So one of the things that we're doing as a company is that we're offering end-to-end services, for our customers, not just piecemeal services, right? Anybody can do that. They can offer this portion or that portion of the supply chain. And the way we position ourselves is we're able to offer complete services out of Mexico, to and from Mexico, into Canada as well, right? So I think that's really what positioned us. We're one of the largest brokers on the southern border in Mexico and in the U.S. We do have thousands and thousands of our carriers that support our capacity that allows us to do that. We have warehouses on the southern border that allows us to do cross-docking, to do distribution services for our customers. So we're very well positioned on the southern border to be able to facilitate these types of booms and offer different types of services to our customers, whether it's end-to-end or is it just, I want border or I want just Mexico or I want U.S. or just Canada.
A lot of the people listening to this right now, a lot of them may be owner-operators who may be in a position to pivot a bit better than others would be. Is there anything out there that you see that they specifically could maybe be doing to take advantage of the current situation, striking while the iron is hot, so to speak?
Well, I mean, I'm not an expert in that, but what I can tell you is that I think carriers need to look for certain, partners that are going to allow them to give them actually good freight. This is just something that's going to be beneficial for both our company and them, right? Obviously, security is of high importance for us. Not only, when I say us, I'm talking about the trade community, right? So there's a lot of focus on security. There's a lot of focus on, how the chain of custody and so on and so forth. So if I was a carrier, me trying to get into this business, I would kind of focus on certain things, right? Focus on how am I going to be able to participate in security programs? How am I going to be able to provide customers what they need? Competitive advantages, right? That's kind of what, everybody's looking for during these days.
All right, so we've got to talk about the tariff threats here, which we should mention have been paused for the month of February. The threat obviously is still looming there, though. I have to imagine you've got some big concerns about that possibility and what that may mean. Kind of, what are your initial thoughts about what you're hearing and seeing so far?
Yeah, so the initial thoughts, obviously, I mean, nobody wants additional tariffs, but it is what it is, right? So what we've been engaging with, again, is this all customer, because this is our customers are what drives our business, right? Part of that has been more the financial impact that it's going to have on their current business today. So conversations that we've been having are more like, okay, so how do we prepare financially? What information can you, Uber Freight, can provide to us so that we can better prepare and really brace for the potential financial impact, right? So again, it's more like reporting what's been my trends over the last couple of years, how much duties have I paid, so that I more or less have an idea what that potential impact can be. Importers of record are importing into the states require a continuous bond to be on file with CBP, with Customs and Border Protection. So they need to understand that these potential duties or these potential tariffs can actually impact that amount. So that amount may have to be expanded or increased to accommodate these type of things. So we're having these types of conversations, right? They're looking actually for alternatives as well. They ask us, well, what else can we do? And at this point, I mean, we're not telling them exactly what they want to do. It's just we're here to provide guidance. I mean, as far as what we know, right? What can happen? I mean, there are options, but those options may not be viable for everybody, right? So we're here more of as a kind of like listen to what their current needs are, see if there's anything that we can provide that can help them make better decisions. And I think that's really the key is data. They need the data. It's their data. It's in our system. We give them the data so that they can make informed decisions on how they want to move forward with this tariff situation.
Yeah, and what you're saying, I think, kind of tracks with what I've heard from experts and economists about this, that there are some preparations that can and have been, I guess, going on here for a little bit to where, if these tariffs do take effect, and if is doing a lot of heavy lifting there, because we don't have any idea where we're headed here. But short term, things may not be impacted that much. However, I imagine if there was a long-term, tariff situation that was imposed there, that would probably bring about a whole bunch of problems. Short-term, less concern. Long-term, more concern. Does that kind of track with how you're feeling about all this?
Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, I think right now in just conversations we're having is like, okay, we know what the short term is. The short term is, hey, let's uptick our volume to get whatever we can to take advantage of the situation. But long term is like, well, do we source differently? Do we source from different countries? Because the tariffs are affected at the country of origin level, not at the country of export, right? So some of these companies are possibly looking at, well, what else can I do, right? Where else can I source from? And that's going to be more up to them in terms of how they determine that. The downside to that is some of these companies are CTPAT, so they built a supply chain based on the CTPAT program, right? Maybe they haven't included other countries per se. Right now, like for instance, like North American companies, well, they're sourcing a lot from Mexico, hence the boom, right? So their supply chain is based on that, right? So some of the challenges that they're thinking of is, well, what is this going to do to our CTPAT certification? Do I need to add all these other companies and so on and so forth? So those are the kind of things that they're looking at in terms of what the potential long-term impact can be. But most of the customers are saying, and what we're hearing from our customers is we're going to move along. We're going to tread through this, and that's really the big message is that they've done it before in 2018 when it happened, and they're going to do it again.
Our thanks once again to Jose Guerrero of Uber Freight. We'll take a quick break now, but hang tight. Landline Now is back right after this.
Are you tired of the IRS following you around like a dark cloud? Call 888-557-4020 and get your life back.
At TruckStop, we built a better load board for carriers like you. Sign up today and access over 600,000 loads on the most trusted online load board. Learn why the best in the business rely on TruckStop to make more money and start driving your profit today.
Landline Now. Thanks for joining us today. I'm your host, Mark Reddick. It's time for another installment of Mafia Secrets, Advice from the Boss Man, with Brian Martin of Four State Trucks, home of the Chrome Shop Mafia. Once again, I'm on the line with Brian Martin, the boss man at Joplin, Missouri's Chrome Shop Mafia. Brian, how you doing?
You know, we're doing mighty fine down here in Joplin. What's going on up north?
You know, it's a nice day out. We'll just put it that way. It's another
skies.
good day. Blue sky. It's absolutely blue sky. Our topic today is one that I think a lot of people will find interesting. And, you know, there's a lot of folks out there that like putting some chrome on the truck. And we're going to talk about the 5 best places that you can do that on your truck and why those are the best places. And I'm kind of curious what your first entry here is, Brian.
Well, finally, after all these years, you've got a topic that I'm well qualified for. Like, this is what I do. Oh, I'm loving it. No, I could do this with one eye closed and one eye behind my back, you know?
Well, there you go.
The cool thing is, even though trucks are getting more and more aerodynamic, and let's say the chrome and stainless outer exterior accessories, the selection to fit these curvaceous convex trucks gets smaller and smaller, there's still ample places. You can put what I call like a nice splash of chrome down the front, side, and back of the truck. But whether you've got an aerodynamic Freightliner Cascadia or a square-hooded Freightliner Classic, there's a chrome or stainless bumper for almost every truck on the road, even these late models, like the new generation 579s, the new generation Kenworth T680s. A lot of really cool chrome-plated or stainless steel bumpers. And, you know, when you got the hood, of course, is painted body color. Let's just say it's red. You know, all down the side of the truck's red. And in most cases, a lot of times, you know, your front bumper, even though it's plastic from the factory, it's going to be red. It's going to be body color. And when you can put that big mirrored chrome bumper on the front, it just gives it you're just starting to kind of portray, man, I'm customizing my truck just a little bit. So I really think a front bumper, and you can get them with, you know, light holes. You can get them with vent holes, towing holes for, tow pins, tow truck. You can get it with a foothold, so you can more easily tilt your hood. So a lot of really cool options for chrome or shiny front bumpers. That's where I'd go first.
Absolutely. And of course, that's the first thing people are going to see when you're heading forward.
You bet. And every time you walk out of that truck stop, you're going to see it when you're walking up to your truck.
Well, what's your number 2 spot, Brian?
Same way, aerodynamic or a classic square-hooded truck, there's a stainless steel sun visor for just about every make and model. You can even get a lot of them in paintable, like aluminum, and then if you want to paint it body color, if that's your thing, I mean, a lot of times that looks really, really cool, but, you know, we're talking about chrome, so I'm going to put a stainless sun visor across the top of the windshields. Obviously, almost every one of us would like to get one that drops down a little further than that factory painted plastic visor. So they're all available, and a lot of those you can trick out, you know, with lights on the visor. If you don't have lights on top of your cab or on your cab roof, you can get them mounted to the visor. And that drop visor, we'll call it, stainless drop visor. Now not only are you portraying, hey, I'm customizing my truck a little bit, there's something about that big visor starts giving it that attitude. You know, it starts looking a little cocky, a little gangstery with that big extended drop visor on it. So after I got done with the bumper, I'd probably move to the visor no matter what year, make, model truck I had.
And of course, I remember a couple of years back, we talked about visors and options there. And you mentioned, I can't remember what the exact term for it, but kind of the bow tie shape versus kind of the opposite of that. Is it still popular to go with those, or do they want one that's just kind of straight across?
You know, unless you're going for that retro, nostalgic, like vintage look, a lot of people just like that big, straight across drop visor. Sometimes it's actually called just a gangster visor. It's just heavier and longer across the bottom than the factory. And then the bow tie, straight across the bottom, V'd down on the top, that's sort of that old 1960s, 1970s, 1980s vintage look. And as of the last 18, 20 years, people kind of put a spin on that and made a reverse bow tie, which is really, really popular. I mean, if you look around in the next 30 minutes and you're running down the highway, you're going to see a truck that has a reverse bow tie, which would be straight across the top of the visor and then V'd up on the bottom side, which on the right truck, with the right styling looks pretty nice. I like them.
Well, that brings us to the number 3 item, and I'm kind of curious because to me the bumpers and the visors are pretty obvious. Is number 3 as obvious?
It is. We're going to get down the side of the truck now, and where else would you go but your wheels? Most all of us are tandem trucks, so you kind of got six hubs and 6 sets of lug nut covers and wheel and axle treatments. There's all kinds of cool stuff you can do there. These 6-piece chrome-plated plastic, I'll call them hub cover kits. Man, you see them at every dealership, every truck stop, every chrome shop. They're kind of one of the first go-tos in high-volume selling items. But you can get those with the spiked lug nut covers. You can get them with the smooth top hat style, like the Lincoln hat style, which I really like. And then you can get them with just the traditional domed lug nut covers. Same way on the axle caps. You can get them pointed, kind of to complement that spiked look. You can get them domed, or you can get them top hat. You can even get them, some companies are offering them now in flat black, which again on the right truck can look pretty cool. But a chrome 6-piece hub cover set for all your wheels, all your axles, that's kind of like a no-brainer. We got to knock that out, and it's definitely got to be on a top 5 list.
And of course, you mentioned earlier with the visors, aluminum being one of the options there. Is aluminum a good material as an alternative to chrome on the wheels, or does it really not have the same look and feel?
Well, most of the wheels themselves nowadays and for the last decades are going to be aluminum, thick cast machined aluminum, and we just polish them out and try to put as close to a mirror finish on them as we can. It's not bad. A negative about aluminum, it's going to have to be polished depending on your environment that your truck's working in, anywhere from every 4, 5, 6 weeks to twice a year. It's always going to lose its luster over time. Stainless should hold its mirror finish almost year round, and all you'll have to do is just go to the truck wash and knock the dirt and grime off of it. So that's kind of in a very quick manner your 2 differences between aluminum versus stainless steel. We probably have a tendency to call them all chrome because people just lump that into a generic term. If it's shiny, it's chrome. But it could be chrome-plated steel, it could be stainless steel, or it could be polished aluminum.
Okay. Well, let's just go right to number 4 here, of course. What is your number 4 item?
I'd slide around to the back of the truck and do your mud flap weights, maybe mud flap hangers, and then a center panel hanging underneath the chassis there with your tail lights, backup lights, maybe a license plate or a custom license plate, but kind of putting a nice bit of chrome on the back of the truck. We've been putting flap weights on mud flaps since I was an infant, and we still do to this day. That's sort of a norm and a quick go-to. But you can get the stainless mud flap hangers. You can even get stainless steel spring-loaded lighted mud flap hangers. So you can have your tail lights up there, and then if you do a stainless rear center panel hanging under the frame, you can just do clearance lights down there, you can do backup lights down there, or you could do some additional brake lights. So a lot of great options, and these are ready-made right out of the box. You can get them with clear lens lights, red lens lights, and a host of different patterns, shapes, and sizes on your lighting. There's just a lot of options right off the shelf to put some chrome or stainless on the back end of the truck.
And of course, you're talking there. That's, I think, the truth with any of this chrome that you've kind of said throughout this, which is accessorizing, to borrow a term from the ladies. It really can make a big difference how you accessorize what you're doing with chrome.
Exactly. Yeah, it kind of lets you make your truck your own, and it doesn't look like the truck you park next to or back into at the truck stop. Like yours is going to have that unique, accessorized, kind of a custom flair that you came up with yourself, so to speak. So it's a lot of fun doing it. And most of the stuff we're talking about, it's expensive, but it's not like you're going to have to go to the bank and take out a loan expensive. You can budget for it, save up in a month or two, and do anything we're talking about so far.
Well, let's get on to the number 5 item here. And I'm interested to hear because you've hit all the ones that I think are obvious or I'd even kind of think of. So what is the next one on this list?
The next one's just kind of that barrage, just that overall fine accessorizing. And it's just putting that splash of chrome here, there, and yonder, not to be overdone. But, maybe you want a stainless bug shield on the top of the hood there, above the grill. Maybe you want the door chop. They're very popular. They make your cab kind of look lowered. You just, almost in some cases, you just tape them across the top of your doors, and it gives the cab a little bit of a lowered look. The cabin sleeper panels, even if you've got an aerodynamic truck, the stainless bars to go the full length under the cabin sleeper with either amber lights in them, or some of them have no lights in the face, but you have the glow lights, like the cab underglow, the lights in the bottom flange on your cabin sleeper skirts. There's just, hood ornaments. There's just a lot of small accessories that you can put all the way from front to back down the side of the truck, and like a nice tasteful placement, not to be overdone. But I think it's just finish out some of the little this and that's around the exterior of the truck.
And I think the key there you said is nice and tasteful. This is one of those where maybe, to borrow a term, less is more.
You can get too much of a good thing. Some people want to put your truck logo emblem accents, your door handle accents, your wing vent window accents, hood center strip, chrome tape here, there, and yonder, and, sleeper vent covers. And it can get to looking a little bit tacky, in my opinion. So I kind of keep it moderate. Not less is more, but just moderate, Don't go completely overboard.
We got about a minute and a half left, Brian, and that kind of leads me to one other thought I was having, which is there any place that people want to put chrome that you absolutely think they should not be thinking about that? What's the no point on putting chrome on a truck?
Nothing in specifically comes to mind. We talked about sun visors, and some of those sun visors can get pretty heavy. Like some of them can get up in 16, 17 inches wide, and they catch a lot of wind. So I'd kind of be a little leery of any great big sun visors. But as far as where not to put chrome on the exterior of your truck, or stainless for that matter, I can't really think of a place it's going to be detrimental. The chrome plating, chrome-plated steel is a harder finish. Like a chrome-plated steel front bumper is not going to pit or road rash as quickly as a polished stainless steel one will. So your true chrome plating, whether it's on steel or plastic, that chrome itself, it's hard. It's going to be relatively impervious to road rash and rocks for, the first 600,000 or 700,000 miles, whereas stainless is a little less forgiving. It's going to get sandblasted a little quicker. But I can't really think of a place I would say, oh gosh, what were you thinking? That's a terrible choice. I can't really think of a certain area or item on the truck that wouldn't be suitable for most logical reasons to be stainless, chrome, or polished.
Okay. Well, Brian, we're out of time, but hey, thank you for everything. I think we helped some folks out.
Hey, it was fun. We'll do it again soon.
If you have questions for Brian Martin, you can email them to Bossman on Landline Now at ChromeShopMafia.com. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com, because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
Landline Now. Welcome back. Every week, we check in with Marty Ellis, who drives OOIDA's tour truck, the Spirit of the American Trucker. Which do you prefer, the old-fashioned manual transmission or newfangled automated manual transmissions? More and more trucks have the automatics, and some larger carriers clearly prefer them. But why is that? And why do old-timers mostly favor the manual version? Marty has a few ideas on the topic.
Carolina west to Denver, up to Bangor, west to Austin, coast to coast, sea to sea, sail on, sail on.
Well, Marty, how are you?
I am lovely, Mark, and you?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much. Just busy. Where do we find you right now?
Well, we are just getting set up here at the TA in Wilcox, Arizona. We'll be here through the 9th, and that's I-10, exit 340, and they have 229 parking spots, a Country Pride restaurant, a Subway, a Popeyes, and 10 showers.
Okay, so not a huge truck stop, but a nice one, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. We just came from a little smaller one over there in Phoenix. It was a little bit of a different stop there in Phoenix. Yeah, they have a TA there now. They've never had one right in Phoenix, and they bought the old Danny's Truck Wash. I don't know if you've ever heard about that, Mark, but
yeah,
they only have about 70 parking spots. All of them are paid, and they have 6 showers, and they do have some food and, of course, the regular TA merchandise and that. But they're planning on putting in pumps, but that's in the process of, all the permits and all. So that's not going to happen anytime soon, but it's still in the works.
There you go. Well, let's talk about some of the things that have truckers' attention right now. The first thing you wrote me about, I think, has got to be one of the big debates for the ages. It separates the old-timers from the new folks, automatic versus manual transmission. And I've talked with so many of the old timers that just kind of pound their fist on the table if they're eating breakfast and say, "I'll never go to one of those automatics." But I'm curious what you're hearing from folks about it. Is the attitude turning, or what's going on?
Somewhat. We still have the diehards. It's got to be a manual, or else you're not being a real truck driver and all. And but we have some that that have some age to them, that once they got into the automatic, they started liking it. So I think the older truck drivers are still going to appreciate the manuals, and then the younger ones seem to appreciate the automatics more. And there's no cut and dry, because I've had young people really like the manuals as well, but fewer and fewer people are actually learning on manuals. Back in the day, I hate to say that, but that's kind of the age we're getting to be, Mark. But it's that's how we learned, was on a manual. A lot of us learned 3 on the tree. My mother had an old Valiant, and I thought it was the neatest car in the world, because it not only was an automatic, but it was a push button on the dash automatic. So it was kind of cool. Well, nowadays, there still is the big, no, I got to have a manual, and it's you're just more of a truck driver. But one of the drivers that came in, had a different perspective on the thought process when they were putting out so much push to get people into automatics and that. And he thought that it was like so you could have more time to concentrate on just driving the vehicle instead of shifting gears. And I've heard that from people that work at truck driving schools. So I kind of understand that thought process, because you don't, especially for people that have never driven a stick, that some of the time you would be spending a lot of time trying to just get them to understand how all that hand and foot coordination goes along with shifting. And so I get the concept, but I think that one thing that he brought up, that he thought that, you might have more time to focus on driving, but what it really does is your focus gets away from driving. Everything's getting so automated that your brain doesn't shut off. I wouldn't want to use that, word for it, but your mind can wander more with automatics than they do with stick shifts, manual transmissions, just because you're having to do more with your manual, so you're more engaged with the truck. And I can see that point of view.
Yeah, I can too. I'll tell you, I think from the carrier's perspective, though, it's especially the bigger carriers that have really pushed for this. It's not so much about allowing people more time to focus on the road. I think it's much more that they don't have to train people as much or as long. And with the constant turnover some of them have, they're just trying to get people into the seats. And and I think this to them is a shortcut to doing that. And I hate to say that. I don't look down on anyone that drives an automatic. I've known a lot of people that do it and really kind of like it. But boy, I sure have heard that other side.
Right, absolutely. With the Western Star that we're driving right now, it's an automatic, and it performs well. Are there certain instances where I would prefer a manual? Absolutely. But I do understand what you're saying about, especially the big, the fleets. They're going to spend less time teaching people how to shift gears. But I also think it's kind of dummy proofing, where, back when I started, the dummy proof transmission was a 10-speed. It was a manual, but it was a 10-speed, and you could about not hurt them. You could beat the heck out of them, and they'd still keep going. Well, kind of with the automatics now, you can kind of just push the button or hit the selector, and you're in drive, and it kind of does the rest. We can discuss whether it does it really well or not. But I think you're right. I think the big companies said, look, we want to hit the easy button, and we want to be able to attract more people to come do this job. And of course, the more people that are attracted into the job, usually the wages go down instead of up. So I don't know how successful that is for our drivers out there.
Yeah, that is the other side of it, is whenever you're looking at training someone less for a job, there's a thought that they just don't have to pay them as much, that they're less valuable. And of course, I don't believe that at all. I know you don't either. But, we all know that there are some good people in trucking and there are some bad. And some of those are just looking for an excuse to pay someone less. It's
exactly.
It's a sad thing, but it's reality. Well, Marty, we're down to about a minute here. And I'm wondering, where are you headed next? I know you've got quite a few stops planned already.
Yeah, after Wilcox, we'll go to the Petro in El Paso. We'll be there the 11th through the 13th. And then we're going to go to our first Road Ranger, and that'll be in Cisco, Texas. And that'll be the 15th and 16th of February. And then we're going to take a few days off and go celebrate our 39th anniversary, Deb and I.
Well, congratulations. That's fantastic. Good for you.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, Marty, that's about all I have. Any final words before you ride off into the sunset?
Guys, just remember, guys and gals, to be kind to one another and give that driver next to you a break.
Brothers of the highway, children of the wind.
Once again, that was Marty Ellis, who drives OOIDA's tour truck, the Spirit of the American Trucker. You can find Marty's next stop on our show and every day at our website, landlinenow.com. That includes truck stops, truck shows, and other special events across the country. Again, find that at landlinenow.com or find the Spirit's complete schedule at ooida.com. That's our program for today. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Mark Rettig, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
I'm a dad,
a son,
a husband,
wife,
I'm a writer,
photographer,
I farm,
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing,
my kids,
Chrome, and I am
a professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA. OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us! Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit ooida.com.